and just a silent, deep rage in his eyes after seeing that photo of what the Russians did to his mother. And so that his friend continues to fight every single day.
As disgusting and depressing as that is to hear, we have to hear it. Thank you, Joseph, for making us cry this morning. That was very moving. Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting. Let's talk to Joe Lindsley now, live in Ukraine. And Joe, I'm reading about President Zelensky, and he said the war had returned to Russia after the attack on Moscow the other day. Now Moscow has attacked Zelensky's hometown. What's the latest there?
Hey, Bob, good afternoon from LVIV. We've had several alarms throughout the country today. No major incidents within the major cities of Ukraine today. There was a big attack, a drone attack on the city of Kharkiv last night, a place where I spent the past month. They were attacked by the Iranian kamikaze Shahed drones. A university dormitory was hit, as well as a sports facility. And we don't have all the information as to what happened, but I was speaking with friends there in Kharkiv who said, Kharkiv has seen so much. I mean, the Russians almost occupied that city in the spring of 2022. The citizens defended it. They've had often attacks every other day, but lately it's been much quieter. And so I'll quote from one of my friends there in Kharkiv. And anytime I quote someone who's been through a missile strike, I always delete the swear words, but you can rest assured that they were said. Mm-hmm. My friend said, I was starting to forget all of these sounds, after these weeks of rare attacks. So it was unexpected, and it was so incredibly scary. And some other friends sent me a photo of the explosion of one of these suicide drones outside the window, and it looked like the sun had fallen upon the city. So incredibly dramatic. And yes, the Russians did in the past few days hit Kryvyi Rih, which is the hometown of President Zelensky. They hit a residential building there. And we do have the reports of reports of drones that hit buildings, in an office building in Moscow, the same building that was hit several weeks ago. And, again, with all of these, it's hard to know exactly what happened. Maybe it is the Ukrainians testing and poking Moscow. What's notable, though, is whenever you see the headlines on this, because I tend to read the BBC a lot, I look at the BBC headlines and attack on Moscow. And sort of the article is always written from the perspective of, and it plays into Putin's propaganda that Ukraine is becoming the aggressor. And very few of these stories mention that, it's been a year and a half almost, and there have been very few attacks on Russian soil. Even Russian villages simply across the line from say, Kharkiv, they've lived in peace this whole time. And at some point, this is what President Zelensky and other Ukrainians have been saying, Russia's going to have to, in order for this to end with victory for Ukraine, Russia's going to have to feel the pain in Moscow.
As you know, Joseph, the White House National Security Advisor is going to attend Ukraine peace talks in Saudi Arabia. I was reading about this the other day, Wall Street Journal reporting Ukraine and Western officials hope the efforts could culminate in a peace summit later this year where global leaders would sign up to shared principles for resolving the war, hoping that those principles could frame future peace talks between Russia and Ukraine to Kyiv's advantage. Now, does this sound encouraging to you and to the people there?
I would say no, and it sounds very similar to, for example, last week, the Secretary General of the United Nations announced his new peace plan for the world with no reference to Russia's war on Ukraine. It's United Nations plan for whenever this nasty problem just disappears somehow. And then here's how we'll have peace in the future. And it focuses on prevention. But these are the very people who've been entrusted with peace, who've been unable to prevent it. And so I think, what everyone here feels is that, Russia has to be stopped. They have to, they have to be sent back to Russia and made incapable of continuing to unleash this type of threat. Anytime you negotiate with Russia, after Russia took the Crimean Peninsula in 2014, you had the Minsk Accords, which were signed in Belarus United States and Germany and others helped with that. And basically, Ukraine sort of agreed to live in this gray in-between zone, allowing Russia to occupy some of its territory, which we see what happened. They gave Russia time to prepare and to build up for their massive invasion of this country. And it was only the people, the government, as I've said many times before, the government was not really prepared. It was the regular citizens, including in that city of Kharkiv. And I've seen apartment buildings at the edge of Kharkiv where citizens grabbed guns and they were shooting out the windows at the Russians invading their city. Very much was the people. And that's what this is about. And, I mentioned to you yesterday that story of Stas, the warrior who was at the music festival. He almost lost his arm. And the band, that has supported him and helped his guys in his unit by drones, they invited him to the festival. And there's another story he told me that shows why Ukrainians don't believe negotiation is possible with Russia. He said one of his fellow warriors in the same unit was from that seaside city of Mariupol, which the Russians absolutely leveled and destroyed in the spring of 2022. That city's still occupied, and during those months, in the spring of 2022, it was nearly impossible for people outside of Mariupol to communicate within the city. And I've heard that, I have many friends from that city, and I've heard the story over and over again. And Stas's, one of his fellow soldiers, whose name we can't mention, he couldn't reach his parents. And he kept trying. While he was in the trenches fighting, he was trying to check in on his parents in Mariupol. And then one day, Stas's friend got a text from his mother's phone number. And this is incredibly hard to relate, and that's why I didn't say it yesterday, but I think this is really what the world is facing here. The free world is facing this type of evil. The message was not from his mom. It was from the Russian soldiers who'd killed her. And they sent a photo of what they had done. And it's just so awful to comprehend. They had decapitated her, and the son gets the photo. No. And it's awful. I mean, and I hate to, ruin people's morning with that news in America, but this is exactly the type of evil that we're facing. And Stas said that ever since his friend got that message, he's been quiet. He said, focused on his work, not yelling or, going crazy, but in his eyes, he said every day, every time he looked in his eyes, he has seen the most intense rage you could ever imagine. And this is silent, deep rage in his eyes after seeing that photo of what the Russians did to his mother. And so that his friend continues to fight every single day.
As disgusting and depressing as that is to hear, we have to hear it. And the more you can communicate what goes on there to everybody, the better off we'll be in the long run.
Yeah, that's exactly what Ukrainians are saying. We have to realize with whom we are dealing. We have ample evidence. I met yesterday with some people from Kharkiv who were here in Ukraine, and among them was a soldier who goes by the call sign September. He's here because he lost his leg last year in battle with the Russians, and he's here to find to begin to get a prosthetic, a new leg here at the clinic in Lviv. And it's amazing when you meet someone who's been, who's broken in that way and has such great spirit. We were at an outdoor cafe with some other friends and on the cobble streets of Lviv, and September, as we call him, was hopping around on his crutches, talking to a table of pretty girls across the way, getting cigarettes from people, and really had such a great spirit despite what he's gone through. And he was telling us that when he was in battle, he wore a T-shirt under his camouflage that said in Russian, and again, of course, I have to modify the language, but it said in Russian, the radio version is, "Get out of my country, you horrible scum, worse than pigs." And he said the reason why he wore that is that he'd heard so many awful stories of what happens in Russian prisons. And he said he wanted, if he ever was captured by the Russians, he wanted to make them so mad that they would kill him on the spot rather than take him as a prisoner. And so he wore that shirt in hopes that they would just shoot him. Fortunately, he survived. He lost his leg, and he still hopes someday he can get back in the fight. Even if it's using, doing intelligence or working on drones. And he also mentioned, that the topic of mental health is something that comes up so often here. And September said he was in Germany for treatment, and they gave him the CBD pills, sort of, a derivative of marijuana, like the medical pills, to make the pain go away. And he says it helped with the pain, but it has made his thoughts darker. It made his thoughts worse. He said what he really needed was to be able to talk with people. And that's why he's so happy to be back here in Ukraine, where you always have the opportunity to share these stories with people. And then he also said, he's frustrated when he looks at the media coverage and some of the criticism, the people who don't support Ukraine in America, that he says that the true story of Ukraine gets completely missed. This is a country of families and strong communities, and like the virtues that so many freedom lovers in America talk about. And he says that gets missed a lot. The media misses it because they don't necessarily pay attention to those narratives. And he says that his quest as a soldier, this is a quest not of law, but of truth. Maybe it is just my holy Bible way of thinking, but I hope for this. I hope that in heaven we will see that all of this was for good. I'm fighting for the soul. And it was a lot of jokes and laughter as everyone was talking, but then you get these moments of seriousness when everyone really realizes what's at stake and just how difficult it was. And there was a nice moment when the bartender, Katya, she could see through the window, and she sent the soldier a pack of cigarettes. And then there was an American woman visiting, and she decided, she knew that the soldier was staying in a military hospital. She bought him a hotel room just so he could have a nice, calm, peaceful night. And then a panhandler came up, which is very rare in Lviv, and the soldier sent the panhandler money on with his Ukrainian bank card. Everyone's very digitized here. And so you just had this scene of everyone helping each other in the wartime, which is really great to see. Foreigners and Ukrainians here standing against the type of evil that would say decapitate someone's mother and send them a photo.
And here I am complaining about being hungry because I forgot to stop at McDonald's on the way in. It's a reality check when we talk to you, Joe. And thank you again for bringing us the important stories we need to hear every day. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob. And Ukrainians enjoy going to McDonald's, too. It's open again here in Lviv. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. There's something like that. Be well. We'll talk tomorrow. Bob. And the news is next in 2 minutes.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?